Hi, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kieran Sage. I use she, they, any pronouns, and today we're going to just be talking about all of the books that I read in March. I ended up reading 4 books in March and ended up with a rating average of about 4.25, which is not bad. Granted, I did read the second book in a series that I really like, and the fifth book in a series that I historically have liked, as in read it back when I was a child. So we're just gonna start in chronological order with a book called Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi. I will admit I listened to the audiobook version of this, which is about like 6 hours long, and I did not love Emezi reading it themselves. She tended to have a very like flat affect where it's like I probably would have enjoyed this more if there's like a little bit more emotion or like something put into it. I don't know what that something is, but it was very clear that they're not like a usual audiobook narrator. They're not like professionally paid to do that frequently. I started reading this book actually in February, and I already kind of audiobook is not my favorite format, but sometimes it's all I can get. So I really did enjoy this. I think it was a little bit darker and a little bit more heavy on the details and areas of abuse and self-harm that I did not love. And it was a little all over the place, like timeline wise and narrator wise, that I think I would have really benefited from reading it physically. Like, it is beautifully written. It is an incredible piece of literature, and I did enjoy reading it. It's just, it took me a long time to get into it, and I think I would have had a better experience reading it physically. So while I do recommend the book with heavy caveats on the content warnings within the book, there is a lot, including child abuse, physical abuse, domestic abuse. It's a lot. I would still recommend it, just maybe not the audiobook. I did enjoy listening to the audiobook because I don't think I would have been able to pronounce in my head a lot of the words. So it was nice to have that put with it. I would maybe recommend listening to the audiobook while physically reading it, actually. I think that's a good stance to have on it. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and it was the first read that I finished this month. So, love that for me. And then the next book I read was In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. I tried actually, I DNF'd this twice, and it's not because it wasn't good right off the bat. I really enjoy B.K. Borison's work, and especially in the Lovelight series. I just had a really hard time because I kept picking it up during situations and like times when I just did not have the time to actually sit down and read it. First time I got the audiobook version and I just did not have the time to listen to all of it. The second time I read a lot more of it because I had the ebook, but then I still ran out of time on my Libby hold and there was a line, so I had to wait for it again. But my sister got me the physical copy for my birthday last month, and whenever I actually sat down and was able to spend the time reading it, I read it in one sitting. Absolutely fantastic. B.K. Borison just knows how to write tension and sex scenes very, very well and keep me invested in a contemporary romance, which is not something that I read super often. I tend to read a lot more like fantasy with romance subplots, and I will say, just as a note, miscommunication is a trope in this book. I think B.K. Borison does a really good job at writing miscommunication, though. I think this one was a little bit on the sillier side and like a little bit more fantastical, idealist kind of vibes, but it was a little bit much towards the end, but I enjoyed the relationship. So what more can you ask for? I think like looking back on it now that it's been a few weeks since I read it, that the ending is a little silly, but like I still had a fun time reading it. So I'm okay with the fact that it was a little bit silly. But I did like the way that, since Love Light is all in the same world, I did like the characters that we picked up with that were teased in the first book, Beckett and Evelyn, and I really liked them as characters. I thought they were fantastic, and they worked together really well. I ended up giving In the Weeds by B.K. Borison 5 stars, and I can't wait to read the next one in the series. And this next one might be the one that I rant the most about because I had really high hopes for it and it felt really flat for me. So the next book I read was Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli, the second book in the Crimson Moth duology, the first one I read back in January. It's really disappointing because I loved Heartless Hunter so much and I was so excited to have a romantasy that I really enjoyed, even if it was very tropey, but like the tension was there, and unfortunately the tension was not there in Rebel Witch. This book recontextualized a Heartless Hunter in a negative way for me, personally. I just wanted so much more. It's just the tensions between the two main love interests, Rune and Gideon, were not there. It simply was trying so hard to have there be tension romantically and sexually, and I felt none of it. And then I know it's not like a fantasy heavy book. The first one was a lot more well done in the fantasy realm, even if it was a little bit predictable and a little bit cliche. I mean, it was still done well. In this one, though, there's the revolution and the rebellion situation that is happening that seems so haphazardly thrown together at the end. And it's like, I feel like this maybe could have been expanded, like, to include one more book probably to kind of get everything in and get it done well, and it just wasn't done well, and everything just felt a little bit thrown in there. And because it was like the main backdrop of everything, it felt so bad. Like, I just did not enjoy the romance or anything because it was all within that backdrop of a really shoddily done rebellion. Like, it just was not well developed at all. I will say it's like the little things that Kristen Ciccarelli does really well. Like, I think she does a lot of good fake outs and chase sequences, fight sequences, where it's like, oh, I'm having a really good time. And for the most part, those were there. But like 4 chapters in, we get a like reveal, and then it's very clear what's gonna happen as like a main conflict later on, and it was so incredibly disappointing. I was like, you can't be doing this right now, right? Like, I know you've been doing some of the cliches, but like you were doing good. What happened? 4th chapter, I knew this was not going to be the book for me, and that's really disappointing because I was looking forward to this book. And then there were so many interesting world building and like plot things that happened in the last like 50 pages of the book, but they were just so glossed over because there wasn't enough lead up to them that it felt really disappointing. Again, I just made me so mad because there's so much potential in this world that I think if you just expanded it into another book, we could have touched on all the things that I really liked about the world. Although I do think if it did get expanded into 3 books instead of the 2, the romance would have really fell flat. Like, really, really flat. Because I just, after the first book, all of the tension was gone. Which is really weird to say considering just how many sex scenes are in this book. It's a fair amount, and the tension was not there, and the sex scenes were not nearly as well written as the first books. And then there's the epilogue at the end where it like ties everything up with a little bow, which was nice. It's very romance first, of course. That's why it's romantasy and not fantasy with a romance subplot. But it just felt idealistic in a way that really I did not like. I think it tied everything up into a nice, neat little bow without even any lead up to it, and I would have liked a little bit more lead up, which is again why I think it could have been expanded, which is weird to say also about a like 900-page book series, a 900-page duology where that I want more from it. Anyway, I ended up giving it 3 stars. I'll stop complaining about it. I did also go back and change my 5-star rating on Heartless Hunter to 4 stars after reading this book. So, and then the final book that I read in March was Take Two by Sienna Mercer. These are my favorite covers. I don't like the new cover. And I'm trying to get all of the books in the old covers like this. It is short, it is sweet, it is a middle grade book that has a lot of nostalgia for me. One of my very first introductions to vampires and my love of vampires. And this one in particular is a very, very memorable one in the series. I think some of the earlier ones aren't very memorable at all, but this one is. Definitely remember Olivia falling in love with an actor, and the conflict in it was really fun, and I read it all in one sitting. Granted, it's short, but also, like, I could have not done that, and I did. I ended up actually sitting and reading a little bit past my bedtime for it. It felt very nostalgic. I did end up giving that one 5 stars. I think it's a good middle grade book, like, especially like on the younger side of middle grade. Yeah, and those are the 4 books that I read in March. Hope you enjoyed listening to me yap. I stopped doing the shorts because I always yapped too much, and then it was always hell to edit down. So I thought I'd just do a little sit down and chat with you about them, and I hope that's okay. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. I do have the next episodes in Life is Strange recorded. It just takes me longer to edit those, so this one is coming out before that. Sorry, it's a much shorter video, but I will eventually get them both up, hopefully sooner rather than later. I'm working on it. The last 2 episodes of Life is Strange are really long, if you didn't know, in comparison to like the 2 hours that I spent on the first view. Regardless, a lot longer to edit because there's still a lot more video. There's an extra hour of video, so I gotta do that. But anyhow, I hope you enjoyed. I had a fun time yapping about some books that I read this month, especially whenever I get to rant about them. I am trying to get more back into reading again. I'm not like behind in my yearly goal, but I still would like to read more because I enjoy reading, but I also have a whole bunch of other hobbies that I do, like recording 3-hour long videos of me playing video games. Anyhow, just to chat very quickly about some books that I do have that I am going to intend to read this month. I have a couple of Libby books that I have currently, and I'm trying to like splice in some physical reads as well, like some off of my physical TBR. Yeah, some of the books that I do have off of Libby or the library right now that I'm intending to read by the end of the month, otherwise I'm gonna have to DNF them, send them back, are A Winter's Promise by Christelle Davos, which I know very little bit about. I know it's a fantasy series, and it popped up in my read a new series list thing that I do on Goodreads, so gonna read it. I've actually started that one, so I better read it. I also have a reread that I have pulled off of Libby, which is Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli, which I read back in high school and I haven't read since, so I don't know if I'm gonna actually like it. Again, I do have like the third book in this series, I think. It's the Creekwood series. So if I don't end up still liking it and don't want to continue on with the series, there's a cat here, I will probably simply not read it. Probably unhaul that third book. I also, from the library, have borrowed Venus in the Blind Spot and Frankenstein by Junji Ito, which will be fun for me. I love Junji Ito. I also have a dog in my room now as I'm closing out this video. And then also another new series, Flock by Kate Stewart, which I don't know much about, and I don't know if I'm going to keep reading it after this first one or if I'll even finish this one. So those are the ones that I definitely intend to read. And because Void wants attention, if you enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you're reading this month or what you did read last month. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.